everybody, to your Top Think Tanks review. I'm your host, Bryce Dolan. Today we're going to look at several different articles from 4 of the top 50 think tanks on the internet. First, we're going to look at the Brookings Institution. Then we're going to go over and look at the New America Foundation, the Rand Corporation, and the Hudson Institute. First, is it too soon to celebrate the destruction of ISIS? Then a look into the use of robocops. We'll follow with the ongoing battle of internet-based drug sales and end with how the U.S. should help defend Taiwan. Now, if you have not heard, recently the terrorist group ISIS has suffered some major losses with their main strongholds getting destroyed. However, author William McCann says not so fast. He points out that in the early stages of the group in 2006, they were ridiculed for its large ambitions and small amount of power. And in 2006, to gain popularity, what they would do is they would carry out terror attacks across the country, across Iraq. And that's how they started gaining popularity. And even though they were defeated as an insurgency in 2008, their popularity increased. Continuing to follow their dreams of creating an Islamic State and carrying out these terror attacks, soon jihadi circles from around the country joined the same fight to bring about this Islamic State under the same banner. Now, McCann continues to write, even though the Islamic State doesn't immediately recover from the demise of its government, it will be buoyed for years to come by spectacular attacks abroad and by its earlier state-building success. Now, what he means by this is, even though we think that we kind of sent ISIS back to its beginning stages, it is more powerful than it was at its beginning stages. McCann discovered in an Islamic State's newsletter, in an editorial a spokesman wrote, "Till an entire generation of Muslims that was witness to the establishment of the Islamic State and the return of the Caliphate, and that followed the story of its standing firm against all the nations of unbelief, is wiped out." Essentially, what he is saying here is the younger generations who have witnessed ISIS and its rise and fall of power, ISIS will not completely die until these younger generations who have seen ISIS grow been wiped out themselves. Now, they're saying that if these younger generations aren't wiped out, the idea of ISIS will live on, and therefore ISIS will never die or be wiped out. Now, that could definitely be a problem, especially now with the continued success and support that ISIS has. To completely wipe out the group is going to be extremely hard to do. Are we going to be able to do that? Only time will tell, and right now it's not looking too promising. But however, if the Islamic State continues to grow, the U.S. will have a good reason to continue to use robocops. Now we're going to move into this other article where a robocop was recently used in Dallas, Texas. With the spike of police brutality in Louisiana and Minnesota, Michael Xavier Johnson was labeled a domestic terrorist when he sniped 5 police officers and injured 9 more one night down in downtown Dallas. Unfortunately, the loss of those 5 police officers was extremely saddening, but the way they went about capturing, or controlling, I should say, Johnson during that shoot-off is a little bit iffy, but we're not going to get into the politics of that. I'll just kind of give you a short summary of what happened. Since Mr. Johnson was up in a building where he was sniping officers, they were unable to get to him without putting more officers in harm's way. So what they did is they decided to have this more or less a bomb robot that is designed to go in and defuse bombs and such. They rigged it with C4, sent it into the building, and blew up the building, essentially killing Mr. Johnson, or if you want to say it, blew up Mr. Johnson. Now, like I said, we're not going to get into the politics of the situation. There's a whole controversy surrounding this, saying they could have used flashbangs to go in there and temporarily paralyze him so they could overtake him. But we're not getting into that. It's the fact that one of these robots was used by police. And after further research, I found out that it is actually extremely common to find this kind of equipment in police departments across the nation. These robots used to be strictly military grade, but as robotics advance, they're starting to expand them to all areas of law enforcement rather than just military. Now, these robots are designed to defuse bombs, set off controlled explosions, and apparently blow people up. Now, there are over 22,000 unmanned aerial and ground units utilized in the U.S. military today. That's 22,000 unmanned aircraft and ground units that are being used. And the U.S. isn't the only one. There are over 80 countries using robotics in their military. Now, this is great, but robotics are only going to develop further. And robotics isn't like software. You don't put it into your computer, and if your computer crashes, you just restart it and you reprogram it and you find something else that works. No, if robotics goes wrong, somebody could get seriously injured. Robotics is actually dealing with people physically rather than just behind a screen. So, as they move forward with this robotics idea in the military, in law enforcement, and just in civilian life in general, because it's a new issue, I guess. Robotics is a very new discussion that's coming up, and as it becomes more and more common throughout the world and throughout our country, I guess we'll touch more base on it. But before we can handle robotics in America, I think we need to learn how to handle the internet. Now, Silk Road. Now, some of you may not know this term. I didn't know it originally. I had to do some research. But Silk Road was basically a black market on the internet where you can sell or buy illegal drugs. Now, the FBI shut down the Silk Road in 2013, but weeks after they shut it down, copycats came in to fill the void. Now, if you know anything about computer programming or hacking or the deep web, they are fast. And so it is no surprise that once the FBI shut down Silk Road, that people came in and took advantage of that so-called market. Now, the FBI are calling these crypto markets, and they say there's at least 50 of these crypto markets that sell anything from cannabis to psychoactive drugs to prescription drugs. Now, monthly revenues from drugs on crypto markets are in the double digits. Not just the double digits, the double-digit millions monthly. These people are selling drugs on the internet and making millions by the month. If you want to know how much of, drug profit that this internet drug base is making, well, of the entire drug profit in the U.S., 36% of the drug revenue goes to online drug sales. Vendors operating from the Netherlands actually claim up to 8% higher of the online drug revenue, they claim 8% of the online drug revenue themselves alone in the Netherlands as a single country. Now, they claim a profit almost 3% higher than vendors in the UK and almost 5% higher in the US. Now, the tricky part is how do you go about controlling this? It seems extremely difficult for the FBI. It seemed extremely difficult for the FBI to eventually shut down Silk Road, but it did happen. But that was one market. Now there's at least 50. So I think the FBI has some new tasks on their hands, and we'll see if we can get that into control. It's no longer just watching the Mexican border or even now the Nebraska-Colorado border for cannabis coming through there. You have to watch for drugs coming through the mail, being sold on the internet. It's everywhere now. But while the Netherlands continue to rake in the money from an online drug trade, the U.S. continues to help Taiwan face a more serious threat. In December, the Obama administration authorized a $1.83 billion arms sale to Taiwan, consisting mostly of defense weapons. Unfortunately, they are questioning if the purchase is enough to sufficiently defend the nation from China and its continued expansion into the sea. Now, just recently in the news, this was some big titles. China laid claim to the South China Sea, sparking a huge controversy with obviously surrounding countries and almost the entire world. Well, China basically came out and said one day, hey, you see this sea that touches our country? It is ours to basically this point. So what does China start to do? Well, they actually started making man-made islands to kind of lay claim to this sea. They're the first ones to ever really do this on such a large scale. Unfortunately, new developments show that a couple of those islands are becoming airstrips, and on those airstrips, reinforced hangars are springing up. And they put in these satellite images. They put in these illustrations just to put into perspective that look, a fighter jet could fit in these. In fact, they made enough hangars on this Fire Creek Island Fire Reef Island to house 24 fighter jets and 3 or 4 larger planes. Now, they're strategically placed by the runway, and they have been constructed extremely fast. Now, this is something not to turn a blind eye to. This is just another reason why you probably shouldn't vote for Donald Trump. Because if you remember right, his first thing, I believe, the first thing I remember him saying was, "I'm going to label China a currency manipulator." Now, Mr. Trump, I'm just going to tell you right now, China, without it being, our number one trade source, is probably one of the 2 major countries right now you don't want to make mad and you want us to be friends with. So let's not do anything to make China mad, especially with these new military islands kind of popping up everywhere. Well, everybody, that does it for our top think tank review. I want to thank you for watching. Make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel. Visit our website. If you want to see any of these articles we discussed today, you'll find the links to them below in the subscription. But until next time, I'm Bryce Dolan, and we'll see you around.